the Off-Grid Prep Family Podcast.
Good evening and happy Friday. It's the Off-Grid Prep Family Podcast, episode 33.
33.
Off-Grid systems for normal people.
Yeah, this is really important to us.
Yeah, you don't have to live like a caveman. I mean, you're not going to have like 100 washers and dryers going at the same time.
And you don't have to spend $50,000.
Yeah. You can just like do it normally for a reasonable amount of money and be able to run a reasonable amount of things.
The amount of systems that I installed early in my career that were poor American components, like poor quality American components for an extra zero.
Mm-hmm. Things are so cheap now, and things are so much higher quality.
So much better.
Yeah.
Most of the inverters, especially the hybrid inverters out there, ours in particular, and most, they are, yes, Chinese made, but they're a German design.
Yeah. And
what happened in the 2000s was a massive solar boom in Australia. And there was a bit of a solar boom in America, but America generally stuck with their own components, and it's like driving a 1970s American car. It's a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Like, you can keep making it and keep saying it's amazing, and it's not.
Made in the USA
Cadillacs
doesn't count for a lot if it's still a hunk of junk.
Cadillacs haven't been good since the 50s.
Yeah.
Like, maybe some of them are now, but like, everybody knows that if you drive a Cadillac, you're into gaudy idiocy.
So
the same thing bled into the solar industry in America. And so the hub of a solar system, beyond the solar panels and batteries, is your inverter.
Yeah. And
the hybrid inverters, and we're going to talk more about this. I'm getting a little carried away because it's a bit of a passion point of mine. But this hybrid inverter
installed this many systems
and been frustrated with so many sales pitches and just people not knowing what they're talking about and think they know what they're talking about. It's brutal. Anyway, batteries are simple. The chemistries are various, but you know what you're getting. When it comes to an inverter and a charge controller, we're going to talk about a hybrid design that is now available on Amazon Prime for under $1,000. And even 5 years ago, when I was really getting into these and learning about these, and they were still only coming from China, they were only $1,500 then, and they replaced up to a $10,000 American setup.
Yeah.
Which still wasn't as good. Like, it's bizarre. So
we've scoped it out.
That's kind of my main.
We've been doing these systems for over 16 years now.
We have.
Industrial, commercial.
Yeah.
Houses, cabins. We're not trying to sell you a system because we don't do that anymore, but we would like to help you so that you don't get led astray by somebody who's trying to sell you a system.
It's still easy. Just the other day, I was talking to somebody, I don't know, I think I was cold calling, and I ended up getting a response from a solar installer.
Right.
And he emailed me back and he said, I don't care about those systems, blah, 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 but what do you think about this one? And he sent me a link to a Schneider inverter.
Yeah.
And it's still like a $15,000 unit.
That's insane.
For the inverter.
You should be able to get a whole system for
the whole system. And you can.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that.
Okay. I guess we should take a quick break before we get into the nitty-gritty of building a solar system for normal people. How about if you go to our store, you can find a Link Whole Home Lithium Battery Backup System.
Yeah.
If you go to offgridprepfamily.com and you click on the store button, it's in the automation section.
Yep. And
this has everything you need except for your solar panels, and it's in one box, so you don't need to hire somebody, you just plug it in.
Yeah. It's based off of a system that's sold by Link Automation. It's Link Automation, all one word, .co. And it's in the Link Automation store section as well.
And it's the 9.0 version is the one that we have in our store, and it powers your whole home with up to 5,000 watts.
Yeah, there was
self-contained.
There was a 11.6 kilowatt hour, which was based on 200 amp hour cells.
Okay.
These were Life Pure 4 cells, but you can't get them anymore.
Okay.
I had 2 or 3 wholesalers just dry up. But these are based on cells that are landed and stored, like they're currently in Western Canada and Eastern Canada, and it's a wholesaler that I found that has a huge stock and 176 amp hour cells. So it's a smaller capacity, but that's why it's the weird number of 9 kilowatt hours.
Right.
And the system has an inverter capacity of 5,000 watts continuous, which is what our house has, and you want to go as big as you can.
Right.
Because even if you only, say, plug in a 1,500 watt dishwasher or a 1,500 watt air conditioner, which has a surge of 6,000 watts,
right?
Because when a compressor kicks in, it surges. You want your system to be much larger than that because the components will be more robust.
Okay.
Like even just the electronic components, like the relays and the circuitry, everything will be able to handle it several times over and not wear out fast. If you're pushing your system to the limits, like if you only have a 1,500 watt inverter and you try and plug a toaster in, you might get away with that a half a dozen times before you burn the thing out.
Okay.
So even though the numbers match up, you want to be way higher.
Okay. So, the Link Whole Home Lithium Battery Backup System.
Yeah, check it out on our store.
So, now we can get into the nitty-gritty. What does the system look like for normal people? How much do normal people usually use? Like, normal people who don't live off-grid?
That's a good question, dear.
What a good-looking question.
What a good-looking question. I spent years installing grid-tied systems.
Yeah.
And most houses, if they don't have electric heat, I found that most houses with heat pumps, even an electric range, which is an occasional thing, they use between 30 and 40 kilowatt hours per day, or 1,000 kilowatt hours per month.
All right.
5 years ago, the last time I was checking bills, because I don't check bills, that equated to about $100 to $150 a month electrical bill, on average.
Yeah. That varies a lot with where you are.
It varies a lot with where you are, and I know that even in the last couple of years, bills have doubled, if not tripled.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what that costs. But I do know that most houses, if anything, have reduced their usage. So I was looking at houses that were using 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. I was looking at bills because I had to calculate how much solar to put on the roof to get them as close to net zero as possible.
Right.
So 1,000 kilowatt hours a month seemed to be the average usage.
And if you looked at your bill, you'd know how much bigger or smaller
they'll tell you.
You are.
Yeah, your bill's really clear on how many kilowatt hours a month you use. That's how they base your usage charges. So
let's talk about how much regular appliances use.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who go and get the fancy off-grid appliances from the off-grid store. I don't know if they've just won the lottery
We've
or...
lived with these... I love your staccato there. Off-grid appliances. They're terrible.
They're so junky.
And so expensive. Just use normal stuff. Get an Aga stove. Get a... What's the Smeg fridge?
Yeah,
just get normal, beautiful appliances.
Yeah,
they're so well engineered.
It's fine. A dishwasher, for example.
Yes. A dishwasher uses... When the heating element kicks on, if you've ever... I can guarantee very few of our listeners... I'm just now getting into my engineer head here. Very few of our listeners will have stood beside a dishwasher for the entire cycle, listening and watching the slight dimming of the lights, trying to figure out how often the heating element kicks on.
Or watching, like, the monitor.
The monitor, to see how much power.
That. Okay.
Anyway, having done that, having experienced this firsthand, a dishwasher will pull about 1,500 watts of power, or 1.5 kilowatts, for an hour on the quick cycle.
Right.
And I don't know who washes dishes beyond the quick cycle. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like, some of these things have 3-hour cycles.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
It's just going all day long.
Yeah. Now, it only uses that, from what I can tell, for about a third to a half of the cycle. It clicks on, it clicks off. There's a relay in the dishwasher. It's temperature controlled to keep the water at a certain temperature, predefined at the factory.
Okay.
So when you're using it, it only uses it for about half. So what you're looking at is, if you run one dishwasher cycle per day, that's 0.75 kilowatt hours.
All right.
Now,
it's pencil time, ladies and gentlemen.
If we simplify that, and let's say we call it 1 kilowatt hour, that means if you're 1,000 kilowatt hours per month, one load of dishwasher usage only equates to 30 kilowatt hours per month.
Okay. So that the dishwasher is not the big thing.
Even though it's a huge load.
Right. So where does the power go?
electrical appliances that heat. That's where most of the power goes.
Okay.
So you're talking about a range, you're talking about an air conditioner,
Instant Pot,
electric hot water heater.
toaster
Even though
oven.
I did say 1,000 kilowatts per month, these houses, most of them had electric water heaters.
Yeah.
Which is not a constant load. Electric heat, like baseboard heat, is a constant load. These things can run for 12 hours out of the day in a cold climate.
Yeah.
So that is constant, huge power.
Just not feasible.
It's not feasible. It's nearly incalculable when you're trying to set up a solar system. So I don't even talk about it because it's pointless.
Okay, so how much of your normal grid-tied house bill is due to the electric appliances that you use that heat stuff?
If you have electric heat, like baseboard heaters, I would say 90%. Like stock watering bowls, anything that has a heating element in it that goes for a long period of time, that's where most of your electricity bill is going.
Okay.
I would say the houses that I looked at who had maybe only one baseboard heater in the bathroom, for example, or I know that most of them had electric hot water heaters. That's where most of the power was going.
Okay.
Electric heat is, I mentioned in the last episode, it's a result of a horribly inefficient electrical grid that was designed in the 70s. Well, it wasn't designed then, but it came to fruition in the 70s, and they were practically paying people to take power off of these, again, poorly designed nuclear reactor systems.
Right.
They had to get rid of the power.
Right.
Like the Hoover
so
Dam, they had to get rid of it.
Electric blankets and electric
Exactly.
baseboard heat because power was so cheap.
Yeah, and the population was much smaller, and now we're just feeling the effects of, okay, now they don't have enough power, or most likely, given the last few years of political climate, they're just simply profiteering.
Right.
Either way,
it was inefficient.
It's still inefficient.
It didn't used to matter, but now it does.
Now it matters.
So this has all led to a system where we just try and draw more power than is now available.
Yeah, that's really what's happening.
It's only recently.
And electric vehicles are causing so much problem.
Even
so
the
many
electric
problems.
heat pumps, everyone switched to like heat pumps
Heat
for their
pumps?
AC.
Folks, heat pumps are compressors.
Yeah.
One of the biggest electrical power users.
Yeah.
When these things kick on, you can feel the power surge. It's ridiculous.
And so if you've got that and your Tesla, like, no wonder we have
heat
the rolling
pumps are
blackouts
not
and the
the
rolling
answer.
brownouts.
Heat pumps are a compressor that uses as much power as an electric baseboard heater. It just does it in a different way.
Yeah.
It's an electric baseboard heater with a fancy label.
But it's so ugly and it's up high on your
Oh,
wall.
and there's a fan, so there's more power. Oh, right, and it's so...
Oh, and it's also still a brushed AC motor.
Yeah, it's still a brushed
That's
AC.
insane.
Some of the nicer heat pumps use an inverter.
Okay.
Which, that's another discussion.
So, they're inefficient, and those are the things that are kind of the no-go for a normal people off-grid system. The grid is failing now, and more people are plugging in their electric cars, more people are using their heat pumps to cool and heat their houses, and they're thinking that they're helping the environment. The heat pumps and the electric cars are just burning the same coal and gas that the rest of us are using.
They are.
They just don't know it because the generator that's running their home isn't within earshot.
Yeah.
So it's just like if we didn't have solar panels, we just ran our generator 24/7.
24/7.
That's what every single grid-tied house is doing. Yeah. They just have the luxury of not hearing that generator.
I worked in the natural gas sector for a few years, and most of, let's call it middle Canada, and I'm sure middle U.S. Yeah, remember all that fracking stuff? Our listeners under the age of 30 or 40 probably don't remember that.
Yeah.
The power generation in Middle Earth, we'll call it, runs on natural gas. So they pump natural gas out of the ground through a series of pipelines, send it to compressor stations, which compress it, and then eventually it goes to power generation stations, which they burn natural gas in turbines.
Right.
It's just a fancy Honda generator.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So the whole point of living off-grid is to have your own power generator.
So we're not touting do something magical.
No.
We're saying do your own.
Yeah, it's not that it's any better. It's just that it's yours. And
It's
you're
yours.
in control of it. It's like paying off your mortgage, right?
It really is. You pay off your mortgage, which I know very few people can do now. We have paid off our mortgage through hard work and planning.
Yeah.
and it is liberating beyond belief.
Yeah, if you own the ground under your feet and the power that's coming into your home, it doesn't take a whole lot to feed yourself.
No, your bills are substantially reduced.
Yeah, there's like nothing left, really. It just gives your family freedom, which is what prepping's all about. So, back to power usage. If you want to go off the grid, you're going to have to make some drastic reductions.
Yeah.
But you don't have to go without those things, you just need to switch them.
You do. In our episode earlier, we talked about a $5,000 basically get off the grid with the minimum amount system.
Right.
And we talked about what you had to do, which was basically you're living in a cabin. Like you don't have standard appliances. You're really
have like a tiny deep freeze,
tiny
a bar fridge.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today's episode is for people who want to live off the grid but not sacrifice much in terms of normal life. Mm-hmm. As I said earlier, the first thing you have to get rid of is electric heating.
Right.
In all forms.
Anything that heats.
Anything. Water, baseboards, anything that heats with electricity.
Your electric dryer.
Electric range.
Okay.
Those things have to be gone.
First, let's talk about the Ultimate Homesteading Planner. If you go to offgridprepfamily.com and click on the Planners tab, you'll see about a dozen options. And it's to like basically overhaul and coordinate your entire life.
This is a planner you've been working on for years.
Mm-hmm. Just put into book form so I wouldn't have to keep printing it out. Mm-hmm. And it's cheaper to just buy it from Amazon than it is to print it out.
It really is. Yeah, you're going to spend more on printer ink. The thing's huge.
Yeah. You can use it to coordinate your home learners or up to 6 family members or your home-based business. It's super customizable on the daily layouts. It has full-size daily layouts. And there's actually like 63 weeks worth, so you get a little bonus. There are areas to plan your garden and your livestock and your pantry and your freeze-dried food and your household inventory and a big emergency preparedness stuff at the end. So check it out. It's $15.99 on Amazon, the Ultimate Homesteading Planner, or you can find them all at offgridprepfamily.com on the Planners tab.
Nice. Okay.
So if I don't want to switch out my electric appliances that heat for something, some alternative.
More efficient?
Yeah. How much is that system going to cost me?
Like 10 times more. Oh. Instead of $10,000, it's going to cost you about $100,000 minimum.
Okay.
And that also depends how often you want to run these things.
Right. It could even be more than that.
Yeah, the energy has to come from somewhere. It could cost you $200,000.
Right.
Like it skyrockets.
So electric dryer, electric oven, and electric heat.
Yeah, get rid of them.
That's an easy choice to make.
Let's talk about the alternatives. Okay. One quick alternative: an electric dryer, hanging on the line.
Yes.
Like 10 months of the year.
Yeah.
And we have high humidity.
Yes, we do. Yeah. We hang it inside when the wood stove's going. We hang it outside when it's not. There are also propane dryers. If you really like those fluffy towels, that's an option.
Yeah,
propane hasn't gone up much.
No, propane didn't move at all.
Yeah. What about like normal electronics? What can I run of this so-called system for normal people? Like we have Wi-Fi routers.
Yep, we have 2.
A couple of fridges.
We do.
We have a water pump that runs intermittently.
This is an important point, actually. The water pumps, if you're talking about a well pump,
right.
Most well pumps, like if you've got a 2 horsepower well pump, 2 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot, but a 2 horsepower well pump uses 1,500 watts.
Whoa.
Because electrically speaking, 1 horsepower equals 746 watts.
Okay.
So a 1 horsepower well pump does not. That's like maybe a 100-foot well.
Does it run all the time?
No, it runs when. So most water well systems have a large pressure tank.
Okay. So it runs intermittently, just like ours. But
more
not
or
like
less.
once a day, like once an hour, maybe more.
Oh yeah. It doesn't take much to empty a 20-gallon pressure tank.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this thing pulls 1,500 watts, just like your dishwasher. Okay. So not only are you thinking about overall consumption, but when you're off the grid, you're thinking about simultaneous consumption.
Right, like what am I using at the same time?
Yeah, because you
don't want to size your system too big if you don't.
No, you don't want to go crazy with a 10,000 watt inverter if you only need 5,000 watts, because you make some really intelligent choices, and as I said earlier, or just a minute ago, you can go from a $100,000 system down to a $10,000 system really quickly. It doesn't take much.
So what would you recommend for a
we have a what's called a diaphragm pump, and you'll find these mostly in RVs.
Right.
They make a buzzing sound. It's like a brrr sound.
Okay.
You do hear it, but it's not obtrusive. And instead of using 1,500 watts, like a standard well pump, this thing uses 100 watts.
Okay.
Like it is a.
And we still use the pressure tank, so
we do.
Then it
so there is a
like
buffer. Yeah. So you can wash your hands, or you get halfway through filling the sink
before
it kicks on.
Okay.
So it does run intermittently, but at a tenth the power.
So it's still about making good choices.
Yeah. Oh, and not only a tenth the power, it's what did I sell a well pump for once? I don't know. It was like $1,500 or something like that. Once again, it only costs $150.
Right, and we just keep a spare.
I think I have 2 spares.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like it's really easy.
Redundancy.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't worry at all about like running the mixer or the blender. Right? We've got deep freezers. In the winter, we run 2.
We do. Yeah.
We do the little plug-in scented essential oil things.
In relation to your earlier episode about buying half a cow.
Yeah.
We get our meat in the fall.
And that's when the chickens go in the freezer too.
Yeah, so we load up our deep freezers in the fall.
We've got a couple TVs, normal TVs.
Yep.
All that stuff adds up, and that's sort of like a constant load.
Yeah.
Like it's basically happening all the time.
All the time, more or less.
So all of those like normal power usages, how much do they draw about?
I would say they would draw around 300 to 400 watts all the time.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea. Maybe closer to 300.
Okay. So in a 24-hour period, that's 7.2 kilowatts?
Yeah, more or less. So it's 7.2 kilowatt hours just for constant normal basics.
Yeah.
Now we have I think we have an 11 or 11.2 or 12 kilowatt hour system.
Yeah.
So that leaves you 5 kilowatt hours for big stuff.
Big things. Dishwasher, washing machine.
Now, when we're talking about the 9 kilowatt hour system, that's kind of the minimum if you want to live comfortably, but you don't need 2 deep freezers and 2 fridges and 2 TVs.
Maybe you don't have 9 people in your house.
You can cut that 7.2 kilowatt hours down to 3 kilowatt hours really fast if you just make really smart choices.
So with our 12 kilowatt hour system, we have roughly 24 hours of no sun.
Yep.
Before we have to start thinking about generator.
Running the generator, yeah.
And that's if we do everything, like all our normal activities, including the 1 load of dishwasher, a couple of loads of laundry, a couple of showers.
Which is a lot.
Yeah,
like that's a lot of activity.
We have lithium, like a
lithium iron phosphate battery pack.
If that makes a difference, does it? I mean,
it's really the only safe lithium chemistry out there. Yeah. Honestly, they tried
like batteries that don't mind going up and down and up and down every day.
No, they're great. It's what is it called? Thermal protection or thermal overload. They have a fantastic thermal set, so they don't overheat.
Now let's talk about options for those things that you really do need to get rid of if you're going to have a system that doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Right.
Water heater.
So for a water heater, we have a propane on demand.
Right.
It works on it's a little tiny box
that
has a super hot propane element, but it's cold on all the sides. You can touch it even when it's running, and it has a direct vent chimney, and which goes through the wall, so it's all low temperature. Anyway, our propane hot water heater is more than enough for showers, dishwasher, everything, and it works on a flow switch. So when the water starts running, it automatically engages and starts heating the water. Okay. Now you can spend, once again, you go to a plumbing wholesaler and they'll charge you $10,000 for one of these things. You can go to Amazon and buy one for $600-700.
Yeah.
And we've had ours for 4 years now?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think ours is an EcoFlow, but I think they've changed their name. But you'll find them.
Yeah.
Just go to Amazon. There's lots of options.
Electric stove.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Not a
switch it out
chance.
for a propane stove.
Propane stove, easy.
Literally any natural gas stove with just different orifices.
Yeah, they all come with them.
Yeah.
If you buy a new natural gas stove, it'll come for the orifices for propane.
Yeah. Most manufacturers, they just send them. Or if you like bought a natural gas one used, you could easily get your hands on the other
You
ones.
can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some propane stoves use electricity for the oven.
Oh, our propane
Some
stove.
more than others.
I didn't realize this, so I'm going to geek out just a little bit here because people want to hear this.
Okay.
And they should.
What to watch for.
So when you buy a really new natural gas stove and you turn on the burner, it goes click, click, click.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a piezoelectric ignition module, just like when you have one of those trigger lighters. And that's good. It uses like no power.
Yeah.
You can run it on a AAA battery. But our oven has this extremely complicated glow element.
Right.
It's an electric heating element that uses like 800 watts.
The entire time your oven's running.
Well, no, it is intermittent, but it's not intermittent enough. And the design, and I only learned this through research because I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Why is this? Apparently it was put in place both as a safety thing and a thing where people couldn't switch things out, so they had to keep buying parts from Kenmore or whatever.
Yeah.
And Kenmore is like the base brand behind all these major brands now.
Okay.
And what it is they actually electrically, like in the circuitry, they wire the motor for the gas valve directly through this glow element, and
So
the
you can't
circuitry.
just take it out and light it with a match.
The circuitry senses the resistance, and so you can't just take this glow element out. It completely ruins the whole circuit.
Okay.
And so this thing is the most dastardly inefficient way of igniting propane, and it's scary.
Yeah.
It has to get red
Sometimes
hot
it
for
doesn't
way too
work
long, and
as
sometimes it'll
quickly
go
as it should.
poof, and that door moves a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, it's terrifying. And how many times have I replaced it? 4?
Yeah.
In 4 years?
Yeah.
It is an absolute piece of
We bake
garbage.
a lot. Like, we cook everything from scratch, but yeah.
I have
it's
seen
ridiculous.
ovens. No, we've officially just, I think a couple months ago, we gave up on it.
Yeah.
We quit
just,
using it because we have a wood stove with a wood oven.
And we have a
And
barbecue.
we use the barbecue, and that's it. I just can't.
Stovetop, yeah.
I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have this oven. There are newer ones. I've seen them where they use that tick, 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 that piezoelectric ignition for the oven.
Okay.
That's what it should always use.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's my own personal trauma.
I would personally prefer a slightly older oven
Yeah.
that you have to light with like one of those long matches.
Manually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, with our oven with the glow plugs, I just make sure that our batteries are above 50% before I bake something.
Yeah.
So
But
you just bake at the right time of day.
as I said, if you have one, just give up on it. It's not worth it. The maintenance is
Yeah, if you have
Terrible.
to start replacing those light ignition things, it's a downhill slope.
yeah.
We also have the wood-fired cook stove in our kitchen, which basically runs all day long from November through April.
I think
it heats the water.
it does. I think ours is an Elmira.
Yeah,
It was made in Ontario between the 70s and 80s.
it's a workhorse. And
It's
beautiful.
phenomenal.
It cooks all of our chickens, all of the beef. It heats the house. It does all the canning, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's cooking stuff.
That's cooking and water heating.
How about the dryer? We already said laundry line,
Yeah.
propane dryer.
Laundry line. When you're running that wood stove, that laundry dries in no time.
Yeah. And even in the winter, if you hang your clothes outside, they like freeze dry.
They do. They do. Get them the next day in the sun.
Yeah.
We have an indoor line that we put in our great room in the north wing.
Yeah.
And that's how we dry all our laundry in the winter.
Yeah. I also wanted to say that if you're using propane for like your stove or whatever, summer propane is no good. If you live somewhere with a north climate, you need to get your propane from a propane supplier and not from the hardware or the grocery store, and not in the summer.
So what they do in the summer, propane they don't have freezing issues. Like propane doesn't freeze, but they use, I'll say benzene or some kind of
Something.
benzoate.
Yeah.
It's a different petroleum
additive,
product.
yeah.
It's an additive, which they use a lot. It's probably 25% of the tank.
Yeah.
And it still burns on the barbecue like propane, but it's way cheaper. But it freezes.
It freezes in the winter.
It freezes in the lines,
If
everything.
you've topped up your stock of propane in the summertime,
Yeah.
just from the gas station or something, you go to use it in the winter and it's frozen.
Yeah, your lines are going to freeze.
Yeah, it's not great.
Probably
And
not in the States. They
to
don't
be
deal
safe,
with this.
you're going to want to store a year's worth of propane.
Mm-hmm.
For us, that's roughly 12 tanks. Just
It
to give
is.
you an idea. That's
yeah.
what we go through.
Yeah.
At $25 a
12 barbecue tanks.
Yeah.
Like, these are little things. $20 a month.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we don't use much.
As far as small appliances that heat, in the summer when the sun's shining, I still use an Instant Pot or a slow cooker or a waffle iron.
Yep.
I use a coffee maker. But in the winter, I am more careful because we do have pretty low amounts of sun in the winter. So I make sure that I have off-grid friendly options for all of those things. And I don't run anything like that if my batteries aren't above 50%.
Yeah, a quick example with the coffee maker. We make what they call
Cowboy
Outback
coffee.
or cowboy coffee.
Greek coffee?
Greek coffee. It's great.
Yeah,
You
it's
basically you dump 2 scoops of coffee grounds into a medium-sized pot, boil it for 15 minutes. Like, bring it to a boil, 15 minutes,
simmer,
and then you're done.
and then you turn it off and you just let the curd
Yeah,
go.
and you can do that on the
There's
wood
also
stove.
like a French press.
Yeah, you
Or
can do
you
French
could
press.
do the drip through the sock Costa Rica style. That's pretty gross.
It's gross, but it works.
There's lots of options for
Yeah.
coffee. You need to have a good battery monitoring system.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're flying blind with what you're
You
using.
don't know
right?
what you have no idea how full your batteries
Yeah.
are. Lithium batteries do drop off pretty fast. Well, so did lead acid batteries. So yeah, you want to have a good BMS because it tells you what percentage your batteries are, and if it's a good one, it'll tell you pretty accurately, and you'll know when to start that generator.
Okay.
So,
Talk to me about batteries. What do I need if I want to live a normal life off-grid?
we have a 48 volt, or more accurately, 51.2 volt
Okay.
lithium iron phosphate battery pack. It's basically 16 cells wired in series,
Yeah.
and each cell is a 200 amp hour cell.
Okay.
Now that's our system. The system that we have on our store is a 48 volt or 51.2 volt lithium pack, but they're 176 amp hour cells.
Okay.
It's put together because that's what is available now in Canada.
Right.
This could change
You don't want to be
depending on where you live. But our 51 volt or 48 volt, those are kind of the standard voltages, and off-grid is 24, 48.
So
Our
why
pack,
do you say 51?
well, because if you've got a lead acid pack made out of 12 volt batteries, you put 4 of them in series, that gives you 48 volts.
Okay.
Lithium, the way the cells, like the voltages, they're 3.2 volt cells.
Oh, so they don't add up that way.
They're a little bit higher.
And that's
But
okay.
yes, exactly. And that's important to note. The nominal voltage of the same pack is 51.2, but it still runs a 48 volt inverter.
Okay.
And that's kind of the important factor there. It's only a few volts, but
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
anyway, 200 amp hours, or this all translates into roughly 10 kilowatt hours.
Okay.
Roughly.
And that's sized about right for us and our usage.
If you want to run a house, that's kind of the minimum.
Okay.
And that's, for us, is 24 hours
Yeah.
on average of
Okay.
battery life.
How about the inverter? How big of an inverter do I need if I want to live a normal life?
At
off-grid?
least 4,000 watts.
Okay.
Now, that's kind of the norm. I saw Renogy just came out with a 3,500 watt hybrid inverter that's
pretty
available on
small.
Prime. No, that's okay. You just can't run, like, I could technically, we have a 5,000 watt inverter with a really big surge on it.
Right.
Like, I think it can surge up to 9 or 10,000 watts. I can run the dishwasher and the air compressor at the same time.
Oh, so if you had one smaller, you just have to be more careful.
You just pick one.
Okay.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
When you're living off the grid,
But this one that we're talking about, the package that's on our site right now.
on our site, it has a 5,000 watt. It's
Okay.
what we
so
have.
you don't have to be quite as picky about
No.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Solar panels. How many solar panels do I need if I want to live a normal life off-grid?
As many as you can afford. No, you're
Solar
going to
panels
want...
are the cheap part.
Solar panels are
Everybody's
the cheap
always
part.
worried about the panels. How many
no,
panels? The
no.
solar panels are like...
Well, I think it's a stigma because
Yeah.
they were expensive.
It's what
but
you see.
Yeah, it is what you see.
Yeah.
We have 18 solar panels that are... they average between $2 265 and 255 watts.
Okay.
We have 2 different styles.
Yep.
Because we bought 6 more
Right.
a few years later. Basically, if you're looking at I think they're up to 350 watts is the average panel size now. You want to get a dozen.
Right.
That's kind of the minimum if you want to run your home comfortably.
So our solar array, how many kilowatts is our array?
5.6.
Okay. And it's sufficient.
It is sufficient.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would add 6 more panels if I found 6 more on clearance somewhere.
Just keep adding them because what you're concerned about is low light.
Yeah.
So before I added 6 panels, we had 12 panels. I think they're Hanwha or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they would really drop off. Like on a cloudy day, I'd get like 100, 150 watts.
And
right?
that's really tough in the fall and spring.
Yeah. And so I got 6 more of these used panels that were technically 10 watts a panel lower.
Mm-hmm.
So my Hanwhas are 265s.
Right.
These are Canadian Solar, and they're 255s. But my cloudy day numbers are over 300 watts.
Yeah.
So
does
those
really
6
well on
panels,
cloudy days.
and so this is just trial and error based on panel design, and they're both classified as polycrystalline.
They're both the same age.
They are both the same age. That's right, and yet the 6 panels vastly outperform the 12 original on cloudy day. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just never know. And I don't know if they're both going to last for the 25 years they claim or whatever. But that's just kind of trial and error.
So that's the lesson. Look for those repoed panels.
Yeah.
From people who financed grid tie systems.
Yeah, I think I paid $1.50 a watt for the Hanwhas new, or maybe $2 a watt, and that was dirt cheap at the time.
Yeah.
And I bought those 255 watt Canadian Solars for $100 a panel.
Yeah. So now, the prices on panels now, you should be looking, if you're buying new,
yes,
to pay less than $1 a watt.
Less than $1 a watt
That's
for brand new
your
panels.
line that you should be looking
You
for.
won't find that on Amazon in particular.
No, it's got to be local because they can't ship them for that
That's
price.
the big one. Like I can get an inverter on Amazon cheaper than anywhere else, but the panels are so big and heavy. So that's, you want to find local, and there's tons of local stuff.
But that gives you an idea of how much you should be paying. And then the repoed panels, like used, 5 years old or less, they should cost about 30 cents a watt, maybe even a little
maybe even less. When we say repo, this isn't like a foreclosure sale. What happens is solar companies are financing homeowners, and then they lease them to them basically. So the homeowner doesn't buy the panels. But what a lot of homeowners find, especially out here on the East Coast, is the panels don't perform. Like the solar company
doesn't. They put them flat on the roof.
They don't lie.
Really care.
They don't really care.
Those door-to-door solar companies are...
They're super,
pretty sketchy.
So what happens is they underperform wildly.
Yeah.
And so the homeowner says, you know what, screw it, I'm not paying this anymore.
Yeah.
And then that's what happens. So it's a fairly oddly amicable breakup. Mm-hmm. And so then the solar company has to hawk these things.
Yeah.
And that's where you find them.
All right.
So it doesn't have bad juju.
Yes.
You're not buying some haunted house where bad stuff happened.
It's just homeless.
It's just solar panels that didn't work right or didn't work as expected.
Work for them.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like I'm prepared to finally live off the grid.
I hope so, because you're stuck here.
I hope this is helpful to you. If you're thinking about living off the grid, I hope you will take steps today to make that happen. And if you thought that this episode was helpful, if you could share it with a friend, that really gives us a huge boost.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 2 free downloads on our site this week. As usual, the first 300 things to prep, which you can find in our store. It's free. And our radio codes and Learn More Fast and Easy printable is also free. And it's really fun. It's a nice little August thing to teach your kids. It's cute. All right. Do you have a quote for me today?
Why solar? Well, as far as energy sources go, we can count on solar to come through for us. People talk about fusion and all that, but the sun is a giant fusion reactor in the sky. It's really reliable. It comes up every day. If it doesn't, we've got bigger problems. That is the venerable Elon Musk. It's a great quote. I heard that years ago, but yeah.
All right. Thanks, Elon. Thank you, dear. Thank you, listeners. Bye.